My name is Frank Chester. I'm a geometrician, and I have been studying forms for over 20 years. And this lecture is about that the heart is not a pump. Or is the heart a pump? Or what is it then? What is it if it isn't these two? What possibly can we say about the heart? And because of these two views, even three views, I think it would be really good to just see what I have done, and you decide. You figure out, is it a pump or is it not a pump? I'm not going to tell you what I think. So it should be interesting. So anyway, to study the heart is a problem is because basically you can't see it. And so the first studies of the human heart was done by dissections. And then in the modern era came along, we discovered rays. And so X-rays were used to study the human heart. And then next came magnets, which are MRIs. And then came sound, which is, echoes, and microscopes. All of these tools were used to try to find out what we can't see in the heart to find out what's going on. Okay, so in my case, I also used a tool, and that tool was geometry. And that tool, like magnets or X-rays or sound or dissections with scalpels and knives, I used three tools, and all I used was a compass, like this, a straight edge, and a pencil. That's the basis of my research on the heart. So I'll show you how I started. I'm going to show you some geometry that I think is necessary for you to understand a lot about which side is this, where is this. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to draw a circle, but first I need to make a straight line. So I hate to be in front of this all the time, but I hope you can see it. But I just take a straight line like that. That's just a stick. That's all I use is a stick. Okay, and then I use the compass. And the compass, any setting, the setting isn't necessary. Any setting. And I stick the needle of it, the point, into the line, and I draw a circle. So I need to take this cap off, and then I'll draw a circle. Okay, so there we got a circle. And after I draw the circle, what you need to do is to circle where the point is that this went into. So, one circle. So this is the center of the circle, and this is the outside, or the periphery. So I take the center of the circle, and I put it over here, at the periphery. And now I draw another circle. Wait a minute. I got it a little off center here. Let's see. All right. Maybe I used the wrong point. I could have. All right. Here's the other circle. It's now thicker, but now at least I know I've circled the wrong point. As you can see, not everything works out exactly like you want, and that's the reason you have erasers. Okay? These right here are made because of mistakes. All right, now I'll put it at the periphery. And now let's see if I can draw the circle, the second circle. And there it is. All right, here's the second circle. What I've just drawn here is the most significant thing in geometry that you can think of. It's just amazing, these two circles. Because if I go back to my stick and I draw a line, where the two intersect. Okay, the two are going to intersect right here on a red line. I can make that red line freehand, so it's a little bigger. Okay, so the distance across here is 1 with the orange line. And that is the same as here, here, and here. So drawing two circles, I've just divided it perfectly into 3 without any measurement. So if you have 10 yards and you have to divide it in half, well, it's 3 yards, and you don't have to do any of that. All you need is just to draw 2 circles. All right. The distance from here to here is known as root 3. That distance. That's root 3. And this is 1. And I did that. This is a very significant point. So if I continue around here on this circle here, okay, like that, this is only half the circle, or a little more. And then, if I draw a circle here, I'm doing this freehand because I have to keep moving, okay. If I draw a circle right there, it's 1/2 this distance. Okay, so that's really important. Okay, I'm going back and I'm going to sit down now. And I'm going to show you something that's amazing. And that is, here's a circle. And in the center of that circle, okay, which I've kind of got red, the center of that circle. If I take that circle and I split it in half so that it goes out to the periphery, now the center of this circle is at the periphery of this one, and the center of this circle is at the periphery of this one. And there is this distance, this fantastic distance, known as root 3. Okay, so that's my introduction to geometry that is so important because this is cell division. All right. So I have found that this is the shape of the human heart. This is the geometric equivalent of the real heart. Okay, so this is the apex and this is the base. They call it the base, which is at the top. So the question is you know, how did I get this shape? How did I get this form? Okay, so to answer that, here is the same form. Okay, in plastic, so you can see through it, because you see what you're trying to do is, what I'm trying to do is to find out what's hidden in the human heart that you can't see. So it's a discovery of what's inside and what's outside and so forth. So you wonder, well, where did you get that shape? You know, I mean, did you just make that up, or where'd you get that shape? Well, to understand where I got that shape, you have to take a cube. And the cube, okay, is all edges. Okay, there are 12 edges. And if you dip this into soap and bring it out and blow a bubble, it looks like this. That is a bubble in a cube. It's a circular cube. So it will hang inside the cube like that. So this is the way nature works to make things go from geometric to organic. And this is called minimum surfaces. Okay? And that's a procedure that we use, mathematicians use. And then here is what a tetrahedron is. Okay, so if I dip this into soap and I blow a bubble, it looks like this. Interesting. So if you look at this, here is the way nature uses it. Okay, this is a marine animal, okay, a radiolarian, and you'll see that it has a bubble. There's the bubble, and there it is in the middle of the skeleton of this marine animal. And of course, then the outside, okay, appears as a tetrahedron. So, what happened is that to get this shape, I did the same thing. What I did is I took and made a structure, just like the cube or the tetrahedron. But this is based on a discovery I made of a 7-sided form. This is 6. I mean, this is 8, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 8. This is 7. All right, so what I did, just like done here, or in the process that nature uses to get minimum surfaces, okay, I dipped this form, but a little bigger. I dipped it in soap. And this is what I got. I got a bubble, just like I got a cube here, or a tetrahedron. I got this shape, okay, in the middle of a 7-sided form. Now, that form I discovered 22 years ago, but I hadn't done this for a long time. All right, so to make sure that this is correct, and of course I have nothing to do with it. Once it blows the bubble in there, it takes on that shape. But if I take the straw and I blow this bigger and bigger and bigger, it will go all the way out to the edge and become the same form but larger. So to really test that, I have to take this shape and put it in there to see what happens. And so here it is inside. This gold, this brass. Here it is inside of this form. So this form inside there tells me whether this is correct or not, because this form, the same shape but smaller. So if I take this off, you can see that it fits in there perfectly. So this is right. Correct. All right. So I think it's time to tell you basically where this guy comes from, because if it's giving the form of the left ventricle, which it is, okay, it's important to understand where it came from. So when we first started out, I showed you a tetrahedron. And the tetrahedron, okay, which is this one, I made, okay, with all faces, straight faces. And there's 4 triangles that make this up. Now, what I did was I took a cube and I put the tetrahedron into the cube. All right. So here's the cube, so you can see through and see the tetrahedron that I put in here. So if I put the tetrahedron in there, it fits in the cube because I made it the right size, so it would go in, not too big, not too small. And I put it in here, and then I noticed that all the squares, the tetrahedron is a perfect diagonal from corner to corner. Look at it, corner to corner, corner to corner, corner, everywhere. All right, and then I realized that from this corner to this corner is the axis of the tetrahedron in the cube is root 3. It's root 3. It sits in the cube at root 3. And root 3 in the cube is approximately between 35 and 36 degrees. That's at the angle that it fits in the cube. All right, so this is what I did to get this form. I took that same cube and the tetrahedron, and what did I do? I spun it. I spun it like that. And when I spun it, all the triangles got smaller and appeared a kite shape. A kite shape appeared. So what happened is that the triangles opened up And right there, halfway down, okay, halfway from the center, from the edge, halfway down, I stopped it, and it made a perfect seven-sided equal surface form. So this form comes from a tetrahedron spun in a cube. All right. So now you know where this came from. See, these opened up. See how they opened up? When I spun it. Now, I continued to spin it. Continued to spin it. And when I did, I got this form. And this form is all the way as far as this can go. It can't spin anymore, because what happens at this point goes over to the center everywhere and makes this shape. And this shape, okay, this is halfway spinning, and this is all the way. Can't go any further. So, one of the things that what really I've tried to understand about the heart is that all of the doctors, all the researchers, no, not all the doctors, but all the researchers that study the heart, they use x-rays. Of course, I already said that's part of dissections and x-rays. And here they took an x-ray of the front of the heart, from the person's heart. There's the spinal column. And then they went around to the side of the person, and then the spinal cord is there. I noticed that these here are, angled, and then at the top of the x-rays they took, it also has an angle. So I'll try to show you what I mean, is that all of the pictures they have of the heart in the human body are at 45 degrees. That's 45, that's 45, that's 45. So, like I said before, the 45 degrees, it goes across the corners, okay, of the cube. I thought, oh my goodness, the heart has something to do with the cube. Okay, so what I did, these are x-rays of the human heart in the side of the body, in the front of the body, and the top of the body. So you can see that there is the spinal column from the top, and then from the front, the spinal column is going this way, and then you turn to the side of the spinal column here. So basically, the research says that from these views, this is right off the cardiological studies, saying that the heart sits in the human body at 45 degrees, and sure enough, all of these are at 45 degrees, every view, the front, the side, and the top. But you see, the problem is that the heart is a three-dimensional form, and it's sitting in a three-dimensional body. So, to try to figure out what's going on here, what I did is I took those same x-rays and I put them in a cube. So here's the side, here's the front, and here's the top. Okay, and this is 45 degrees, and this is 45 degrees, and this is 45 degrees. So they're right, except the problem is this is a three-dimensional form, and the heart sits in a cube, okay, at root 3. So there is the front. You can see there's 45 degrees. And here's the side. That's 45 degrees. And the top has 45 degrees. But that's root 3. Remember that this is the same stick, okay, that I used to explain root 3. So here is a two-dimensional application of root 3. And now it's in a three-dimensional form. So if you look at the heart in the human body without the cube, there is a reason that it sits at that angle, because it originally was within the cube. Of course, it's not there anymore. There's no cube in the human body. Okay, but you have to understand that it has a relationship to the cube. So this is something that we can't see, but through geometry we can understand. Geometry helps. This is a new tool that people who study the heart can use. So what I did here, as I told you, this was in the center. So I take the plastic Chestahedron that is edges only. You know, I mean, here it is. Same thing, same Chestahedron. And what I do is I take this, which is inside there, and I put it inside. And the two together look like this. So here's this inside. Can't go any further. And this is halfway from the tetrahedron. All right, so what do I do next? I take this and I put it into minimum surfaces, which is organic process that nature uses. And so here's what the form looks like, okay? And what I call a minimum surface, or the bubble. And I take this and I put it into minimum surfaces of the seven-sided form, which I showed you here. There it is. They're together now organically. Okay. Now I'm going to put these over here. The next thing I'm going to show you is something also that is hard to understand. How is this possible? But I found out that there is a cone that goes inside this form, okay? And it goes all the way to the apex, okay? And it's forming around the triangle. So I think, well, why did I do that? Because if I spin this, this turns into a circle. And that circle is the relationship to a cone. And a cone basically is a vortex form. All right, so what I did is I had studied this in such a way that I realized that there was a doctor 150 years ago, his Pettigrew, and he said that the myocardial fibers in the heart twist in one direction, and then they come to a neutral spot, and then they twist in the opposite direction. So I did my best to try to find out how that works. So what I did is I took the top of the base. Here's the base part. This is the base. That's that part. I cut that off. And when I did cut it off, I got this lower portion. So what I did is, here is the angle that the myocardial fibers run, okay, in the part. And as I unspin this, you will see that the angle changes. All right, so now you can see that actually the midpoint is straight across. So they're going around like this in circles. But if I continue to unwrap it, it changes directions. And now it's going from the bottom to the upper area, up to the base. And here, of course, as I keep going around all the way to the end, I get a complete opposite spiral. So that means that the vortex has now changed directions. It's gone from clockwise to counterclockwise. And of course, to do this, to find this out, I had to use, a little hard to get this all together, but I'll show it to you. I had to be able to do this, I had to use two circles. Not one, but two. Because what I found out is that if I spin this up into a cone shape like this, okay, it comes to keep that angle that will fit into this. Okay, I had to keep it about 22 degrees, and I had to continue with that. But what happened is that if I just had this one circle, it's not it's not 8 layers. It has to be 8 layers according to the research. So that means there's 4, there has to be 4 more. So I just kept spinning this around, and I went all the way around back to the opposite direction of the cone. Okay, and now I have 8 layers. I have 8 layers that spin from the outside. It moves down, okay, on this one, and then it moves in. So to show you that, what's happening here. Also, I want to show you that there is this cone. This cone is accurate. Okay, that's the cone. That's 8 layers. And then, of course, this is the upper cone. Yeah, the other half. If I put them together, they're the same cone. That's the way it should be. And again, if I put this back into here, you can see that that circle, okay, that's being created, when I spin it, the geometry, okay, stays consistent. And there it is. It goes in. And there's that circle right there. So that shows you that the vortex or the cone shape is accurate in relationship to this. Now, when I did that, I was very surprised. What happened was that when I put this on, which you know is the same cone, show it again. It comes from the same cone. So if I put this back in, like I said I did, I put it back into the Chestahedron, which is the name of this form, and then if I take this, it goes around and it touches. I have to show you here. This is too big, like I said, this cone is too big, but I just make the Chestahedron a little smaller, like this. Here's the 7-sided form. And if I put this into the top circle, and it goes all the way to the apex, you can see it's pointing right there. See it? See it? So you know it's correct. Okay, and what's so amazing is that this goes around, and it touches these 3 points and these 3 points. So what it's telling me is that the myofiber muscles are parallel from the outside to the inside. They are the same cone. So there's a parallel movement from the top to the apex that's coming down. And that is amazing. I never thought that that would happen, that these 3 would touch at the bottom and these 3 touch at the top, and that it is the same cone. Okay.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Camera 1 is running. Camera 2 is running, and we're good to go.
Okay, here we go. So if we go back to this, these are the myofiber cardiomuscular fibers, and I've used lines, although cardiomyofiber muscles are not lines, but they're actually a bunch of fingers that are connected all the way around. But I use lines to show you the direction that they're going. So if you look at the outside and you follow this line up and you go inside, you see that it turns the opposite direction. So I wanted to know how that would be with the base on it. So I made it. And this is what it looks like. The red is the base. Okay, and these are the myofibers. Okay, they're going here in this direction. Okay, they're turning counterclockwise. And then if you look inside, it's going clockwise. You can see what happens is they come up like this. They go across the apex. They go across the base and then back down in the opposite direction to the apex. And if you look, these lines compared to the inside, okay, are opposite of each other. They're 60 degrees. So there's a 60 degrees here, okay, of these fibers that are going around, looking through and seeing at the other side. So if the outside looks like this, the outside goes out, it goes over the base, and then down into the inside in the opposite direction. So that's the base. So to get from the inside, which is turning clockwise, and from the counterclockwise is from the outside to the inside, there is a form that you saw here when I did this, that as I unwound it, they eventually get until they are straight across where the two meet, where this circle, just like these, when these two circles meet here, it's going horizontal. So I made this is the neutral point of this spiral turning clockwise and this spiral turning counterclockwise. So the middle looks like this. And you notice that all of it is going horizontal. Now, both of them are going horizontal. Both the smaller inside and the outside at this point, at the midsection, they're all horizontal. And you can see that the top of the base are real circles, okay? They're not going at different angles. They're going in and on the same way. So this is the mid-level of the myofibers inside the heart. So the cone, okay, that is responsible, okay, you see these two cones right here. This is the inside cone, goes to the apex. This is the outside cone, which are the same cone. So they are parallel to each other. And between these two cones, it goes from clockwise to counterclockwise. So this cone here has a clockwise movement, and this has a counterclockwise movement. So we have to figure out what's going on there. Well, one of the things that I found is that they talk about this section, this is in the human heart, and it's a band, and it goes down one side, and it curls around and goes back up to the other side. Now, they know it's there, but how come, or what's going on? So I made that cone, and so that you could see that this part here goes down, and it goes around, it goes down and around, and back up to the other side. So it goes down, around, and back up to the other side. So this is a band, okay, I think has something to do with keeping the heart from expanding too much, or maybe even contracting. But so to find out what this is all about, I studied it. And so I found out that it's the same size cone as this cone. They're all the same size. They all work out. Okay, so let's undo this to show you what I found. I'm going to undo this. There's the band. How come it's like that? Who knows? No one knows. They just know that's there. Okay, so it's not seen what that could possibly be. These things that you've been seeing are not seen. So, the geometry shows you what this is all about. So here it is. If you let this loose, that band turns into two circles, 1, 2, just like these. If I put these together, now you have two circles, and what do you have? Root 3. There's the root 3 again. Not only does it appear in a band when it becomes a coil, okay, flattened out into two spheres again, or flat circles, root 3 again. So here's the root 3 here, and of course in the heart you saw that the heart sits at root 3, okay, and root 3 is between the cells when they divide. Okay, so you've seen that. Some of the things that I have never lectured on before. Okay, so one of the things that's very interesting about this form.
Wait, Frank, sorry, one more time. Can you fold this up one more time and
yes.
get it up? And
okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this up, okay, to its original shape. So you can see it's root 3. Flat pattern, root 3. Here's root 3. See the row? There's your circle. There's your root 3. The other half is over here. Two circles. So what I do is I take these and it's not easy to do this, but I can certainly do it. Okay, I have to make this into a vortex. Actually, the vortex is starting to form. Okay, it's getting steeper on the sides. Okay, so I have to kind of work with it to keep it together as it turns into each other, because these are two circles, which you saw. See, I'm getting it. Can you see that this is starting to bend? Okay, so if I keep going, I'm trying to get this shape. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it to this shape. It's not there yet. Now I keep going around here, getting a little bit better. You can see it bending more. Getting closer. And now you can see the loop is starting to form. See it? See the loop? I call that Frank's loop. Okay, so I get to the point where these are opposite sides, like this, as you can see. Now these are opposite sides. And I'm almost there. And let's see how close we are. Oh, real close. And there it is. There's your band. It's going around, and this is on opposite sides. Now that's marvelous. And it's root 3 again. So root 3 has a lot to do with the design or the what we're finding about the invisible part that the geometry can actually show now, that X-rays, MIRs, magnets, echoes, sounds, microscopes cannot find. Geometry can find it. And geometry is nothing but a stick, a compass, and a pencil. And there's no measurements. Never used a computer on any of this. I haven't needed it. I need the computer to illustrate it. That's about all. There it is. There's your little coin, or cone. Here's another one I made. Same thing. Showing it goes down, it loops around, and comes back up. All right. So.
Wait, I need to have one more time that you start from here, from that cone, and just unroll it and put it on the desk.
Okay.
I missed that before.
Here we go.
Okay.
So, as I go back, okay, that the splitting of two circles, okay, makes root 3 from there to there, which is on the drawing over there. Okay. So, if I undo this, it turns into this beautiful spiral, and you already see the root 3 coming into existence. There are the two circles, right, flattened out. I'll turn it this way, maybe it kind of likes to bend. And remember, they don't know where this comes from. Here's the root 3. These circles are a little bigger, but it's the same thing. All right, here we go. We have next thing that we haven't covered about the heart and the geometry is the way this moves. And this is very important, because how can this geometry actually move? Okay, so we're going to get to that, but before is that you see that the blood enters into this chamber and then it goes out, but it doesn't go out the same hole. Okay, so I had to figure out where the aortic valve was. So I had to take this shape, which you saw before, and I had to find out how the blood gets out, and I found out that it gets out on this side of another triangle. So this piece here, okay, that I've added, is known as a stellation. So if I take this surface, and this surface, and this surface, lawfully, it turns into a shape that fits the geometry perfect. So I found out this is the mitral valve. The blood is coming in. It's turning and going back out through another one here. So this is the aortic, and this is the mitral valve. But this is not accurate yet. I'll show you why. But here it is. Now we have this form, okay, in a solid form, and then we put that form into the original Chestahedron, which is this one, and we put this one back in there, but this one now has a spot for two valves, a mitral and an aortic. So, of course, what's the next thing I do? I have to go to nature. Nature is minimum surfaces. So I'll make this into minimum surfaces and put the two together. They look like this. There's the aortic valve, mitral valve. The blood comes in and leaves. And what's interesting is that the valves are at different angles. And the reason they're at different angles is because both of the right angle of the valves, which are at different angles, come out to about 135, 140 degrees. So you can see that the mitral valve is much bigger because it goes from the outside of the vesica, or the root 3 area, and this one goes on the inside. And so this relationship to this is about 2.5 to 1, no more, maybe less. So that means that this would be like 2.4, and this would be 1. And that is the ratio of the mitral and the aortic valve. But they're not on the same plane, so they're becoming three-dimensional. Okay, once you bend a surface, it's becoming three-dimensional. So here they are, all together. And there's the form inside I told you about. There's the aortic. And this is the base. And that's pretty complete of what I found that everybody's kind of guessing at, because they don't really know. They don't have the geometry. So if I show you this drawing right here, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, this is the top view of a real heart. Okay, the atrium has been taken off. Okay, and here's the mitral valve, which is coming from the lungs, the red blood, and is leaving out the aorta. Now the aortic valve is coming off the side of the base. So if I drew a circle right here, that's this circle. But it's triangular. Notice that's triangular. And that's this angle. So if I put the heart at the same angle as this photograph of the heart, you can see that this is the aortic, and this is the aortic, and this is the mitral valve. And there they are in relationship to the geometry to the real heart. And then on this side, I can flip it over here and show you that there is the top of the Chestahedron. There it is. Oh, I'm going to tell you something that I had to work out, and I figured it out. But I haven't given a lecture for 5 years, so a lot of this wasn't known 5 years ago, because during that time I worked. Even though it wasn't always easy to work, I did continue to work. But anyway, one of the things that really got me about this is that the inside of the heart turns clockwise and the outside turns counterclockwise. Now, what's going on here? You know, what is behind that? So I decided that I would take a placemat and I would roll it into a shape. And I saw somebody else did this, but I had seen this almost 10 years ago before. And if I take this tube, okay, that I rolled up, okay, and the tube here is turning, this is turning clockwise. Yeah? This is the way the clock moves. But how can you make something go this way, the opposite direction? This is just this whole tube's going the same way. All I had to do is bend this around, and there it is in the opposite direction. Well, this was a big discovery for me, to find out that all I had to do is bend this. And now we're going, one is going this way, and one is going this way. That's fantastic. So, based on that discovery, it made me realize that I had a way to show that the inside of the mitral valve turns in the opposite direction as the aorta that's coming out. So this is turning clockwise, this is turning counterclockwise. So I found out, my gosh, there's the idea behind it. This is bent. So I thought, well, okay, why don't I try to make something to prove that is really the case? So I made this object here out of junk, and pill bottles, and magic markers. And I found out that based on my discovery that I could turn this one clockwise that should turn this counterclockwise. And it does. Now inside here, there's no pulleys, there's no gears, there's no belts. But I'm able to do this just like the real heart. So the real heart, the blood runs in and runs out, opposite direction. This was major to me because I'd never seen a model of this, anything like this. All right, so in relationship to this discovery, I worked a long time to try to find out if this is really the heart, then it should move. So I found out that the outside of the heart, okay, moves like this. And what's happening is the triangles are expanding on the sides. And so are the kites. So it's moving at this part of the heart. So everybody that uses the tetrahedron as a model never can explain why it comes down like this and then it pinches in, which is the real heart does. Okay, so what's happening is this triangle right here and this one here are moving out. And if you look at any beating heart on the internet, you'll see that every place on the form, this is the only place that moves. And of course it makes sense because of this model. All right, now, here's the problem here now, is what about the inside of the heart? This part, we know that the outside moves by these triangles. They move out. So the outside is compressing and it's contracting and expanding at 3 points, which is 3 triangles and 3 kites. But the inside has this form. So I studied it for a long time, and I found out that the only way I could move the inside was like this. But you see, that's not the way the heart works. The outside works. Oh, good going on the outside, and not the inside. So after plenty of study, lots of study, this is a major breakthrough. And the reason is because this one also moves, and it looks like this. And it moves the same time this moves. And they move together. And this is the first three-dimensional form that moves in 3 directions at the same time. It moves back and forth, right to left, and from bottom to top at the same time. So this one's moving here, and this one is moving on the outside. All right, so I need to take this one and put it into this one and see if I can get them both moving at the same time. So I made a model. Kind of want to come over here and see the way it works. Here it is.
One moment.
So there's not a model in existence that shows this. Nowhere. Never has been. There never has been a model that expands on the outside and contracts on the inside at the same time. One expanding and contracting at right angles, the other one is twisting. Now remember, this is the geometry. It has to go to organic, which I've shown you. I've shown you the organic, and the organic, well, okay, will work the same way. Okay. Okay, now that you've seen this model and how it works, how the geometry is showing the way that the heart is working, but you cannot see the geometry because it's not there anymore. The geometry isn't in the human heart anymore, but it was based on what the heart does, says that there was a geometry behind it and its movement that you can't see in. I mean, you can get any MIR, any knife to cut the form in half, or you can dissect it with your thumbs and split it apart and unwind it. But you're not going to see the geometry that's the lawful movement that's happening in the heart. Okay, so I'm going to set this down. Now, this is, I think, the real mystery of the heart. All right, now listen, this is what's amazing. The blood is what opens and closes the valves. This valve, mitral, this valve, aortic, are opening and closing based on the movement of the blood. Okay, so remember that the movement of the blood and the understanding of it is very difficult because, you know, the magnetic magnets and echo, sound, and dissection, and so forth and so on, it isn't seen. Only the geometry is seen. So this is what's going on in the heart. Once the mitral valve opens, the aortic closes. And as soon as the aortic opens, the mitral valve closes. And that allows the blood to go in and not go out yet until it opens. And then this opens and the blood gets out. This closes so the blood can't go back. Okay, so my question is that the valves are based on leaflets, which are quite thin. And the strength of the leaflets are done with cords. And these cords are like a parachute. And these cords go down to a muscle. And these cords keep the valve from opening when there's pressure against it. And when there's not pressure against it, it opens. Okay, so that means that this is what the blood is doing with these valves. And, who knows this? Here it is. This is what is actually happening in the heart that you can't see. This is what's happening. The blood enters. Okay. This is open. That one's closed. To close this one, you have to go in the opposite direction. So the heart is doing this. And this is opening and closing the valves. I don't know. I've read an awful lot of books on this. I studied 1 year. Never had any explanation that this is what's going on. Okay, so this is revolutionary, that this is known. But what isn't known is how is this possible? How can this one turn this direction and this turn in the opposite direction? This one opens and this one closes, and then this one opens and this one closes in less than 1 second throughout your entire life. This happens in less than 1 second, 9/10 of a second. This is going on. So it's doing this, not like this. I mean, 9/10 of a second, that's fast. This is going like a minute. And the only explanation for this, okay, the only explanation is that something inside the geometry of the human heart is going on. And this is the real essence of what I've found, yet that is just so powerful. The inside of the heart has a chamber, and this is the shape of the chamber. This is the architect. This is the architecture of the internal chamber. I call it a chamber. Okay. So what's happening is that because of this geometry, it's reversing all the time. It's reversing like this. Look. This part's going, the blood's coming in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And it goes like this because that's how the heart works. It works like this. So it's forcing the blood this way and sucking it this way. It's doing reversing this way, and now it's sucking this way and reversing the other way. And this is the secret of the pulse. This is how come the heart has a pulse. And that means that, yes, it is a vortex, but the vortex reverses. And that's why you have all these reversals in the shape that I showed you with this one. That's why these are different going. This is why they're spinning. As they spin this direction, this direction, this direction. And these are like rubber bands that pull it back, goes forward, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, and it's making this form. Look at that. That is the secret of the pulse and how the blood opens and closes two valves opposing each other. So one valve is open, one valve is closed, and this is why. That is my contribution to the best breakthrough I've had yet. Okay, so I'll show some new research that's coming up. What else am I going to do? Well, what's next? Okay, I'll show you what's next. One, if I look at this drawings here that I set up, so I go back to my two circles, which I started at the very, very beginning. I'm going to show you my new direction into this research. And as you know, as you split this in half, okay, at the two circles, the center hits the periphery of this circle, and this circle, the center hits the periphery of the other circle. okay, which you have seen so many times. And that's what this drawing is, which I'm sure you know by now. And also, if you look at it, there it is three-dimensionally on a view of the heart that's on the websites of a doctor. And I'm going to color this in because it's the same drawing, okay, so that it relates to this, because this is twisted around, and that's okay. So I'm going to color in this part. That's this part. Notice how this comes around and it hits part of the blue right here, and look where it hits. It hits at root 3. You see, this is root 3, isn't it? Huh? You know how we've been talking about root 3? There it is. And what's so amazing is this is root 3 and this is root 3 that makes a triangle. And that triangle makes a circle right in the middle, which you know is the aortic valve. All right, so this is the right ventricle, which I have not said anything about it. This is the right ventricle. This takes care of the blue blood, or the blood that's coming into the lungs. Or is this one, okay, is the main dude. He's the main guy. He's the main thickness. Okay, there's the blue. And now we know what we're looking at here. And you can see that this part right here is also this part that goes from here to here. See that? That's this part. You can see that this part goes into the right ventricle. Okay, and this one also is here. But it only shows up on this one because this is a collapsed form. It's collapsed. And this, as the heart beats, okay, as it's going through its pulse, okay, it swells and expands the whole way around, and it pushes this right ventricle out and in, out and in, out and in. And I'll tell you why, is because this ventricle, okay, the right ventricle, is very thin. I mean, the muscle is only about that thick. So it doesn't need a heavy muscle because this guy's moving him. That works out good. All right, so here are real hearts out of cadavers. And you can see there's the root 3, right there where the circle is. There's the root 3. Here's the right ventricle, left ventricle. Here it is again. Here it is. Okay, that's at root 2. Here's the circle. Here it is again, but I didn't put root 3 in. So I am working on this part now because most people don't study this because it's so thin. They just cut it off and they study this guy because he's a massive muscle. But this isn't. It's just like a napkin falls off and lays on the floor. But I'm studying it now, and here's this way I study things. Here it is. Okay, here's the mitral valve. Here's the left ventricle, right ventricle, and I'm starting to study the way it works. As you see, this movement and this movement inside are at 60 degrees, and I found out that there's an angle here that's going on, and this right ventricle. And it has a relationship to the apex of the left ventricle. So this is where I'm going now. I'm starting to study this thing, and this is how we do it. So I think that's good. All right, one more thing I'll show you is the future work, and that's right here. I have found how the Chestahedron, the normal heart, okay, can transform into what I consider congestive heart failure. So what happens to this to make it turn into what they call a basketball? Okay, so this is what it really is. This is what they call the basketball. The basketball is very circular, but it's a cube. The heart is turning into a congestive heart failure into the shape of a bowed out cube and minimum surfaces. And this is the process that goes on. This is what happens, is that the Chestahedron starts to get its triangle at the top, okay, it's starting to get smaller. Okay. And here it is, geometry. Here's how it is compared to the original heart, what's happening and how it's swelling and how it's changing and how you can tell if congestive heart failure based on the form is starting to become a cube. Now as it keeps going, you can see how it changes. You can see that the back triangle in the back, okay, is getting smaller, smaller and smaller. Now as it moves, okay, this red lines I put on all of them, eventually this triangle right here disappears to where that white line is, and now it's a cube. Now it is this shape. So you know that the distance between here and here, okay, from the healthy heart to a congested heart, has a geometrically metamorphosis that now has been found. And all you have to do, here are the organic shapes of what's going on. And you can even see that these kites, okay, this is already turning into 6. So what happens in congestive heart failure is you're going from a 7-sided form to a 6-sided form. And it does, the 6-sided form does not move like this. This is a 7-sided form. As you know, this has 7 sides, so does this. This has 7 sides also. So this is where the new research is going. I don't know how far I'll get, but I'm at it. I'm still working at it. And I thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any comments or give me a critique, please give me a critique. Send me a question or an objection or a positive or something you've seen or this is stupid or whatever. Send me, and then I will put the answers to these questions on another video so you can see them and listen to them, and I'll try to explain my way. So thank you very much for listening, and keep working, because that's where the life is. Thank you.